we're live on the Wealthy Healthy Live Show, where we have honest talk about health and growing your wealth. My name's Jim Miller, your host, and this is a show that we're just starting to do. This is our second episode. I'm pleased as punch to have Kimberly Davidson join me today, and I've got to remember to hit go live on Instagram, so we have our Instagram friends with us. We're on, I think, 6 different channels today. We're on Facebook twice. We've got LinkedIn and YouTube and Instagram, all live and thriving. So I want to introduce Kimberly here. I'm going to bring up her. She is really involved with the city, and she is the Economic Development Director and Public Information Officer for the city of Wildomar. This is the website that they have, and let me pull the Economic Development Department up, and there's Kimberly right there. Yeah. So, and she's a busy mom, a busy executive, public servant, and today and also Kimberly's been on my other show, the Bold Leadership Stories show. That was a great episode. You can catch that on YouTube at Bold Leadership Stories. And that would be great. To appreciate any subscription and likes that you've got there. It was a great interview and great episode, I thought.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was fun. And then let's see. I wanted to chat just briefly about Kimberly's background. She's got an amazing story. And she's, of course, the very, very much involved with the city of Wildomar, and she's earned many notable awards promoting business in the Temecula Valley. She's awarded Women of the Year several times, and I won't go into all the details. A long list of amazing accomplishments. She's held many board and organizational management positions over the years, including Professional Women's Roundtable, Angels at Work, Find Me Foundation, and the National Association of Women Business Owners, and a strong supporter of the Marietta Wildomar Chamber of Commerce. Kimberly holds a Bachelor of Arts in Journalism from the California State University, Northridge, as well as Leadership Certificate from California State University, San Marcos, and from the Corona Chamber of Commerce, Norco College. She resides in Wildomar with her 2 daughters, along with several rescued dogs and cats. Yeah, and with that, let's bring Kimberly up. There she is. How are you? Welcome to the show, Kimberly. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, we talked on the other interview that I did with you all about your leadership role, and you told some great stories, and all the accomplishments that you've done there is very inspiring. And but today I want to kind of switch gears. For this show, I wanted to delve into your experiences being a single mom, an executive, community leader, and what's it like being you today in this world? What are your challenges? What are your ups and downs? And kind of give us a flavor of how that all is going for you right now.
I guess that's kind of hard to say because I've never been anyone else, so I'm just me. But I think probably everyone feels that way. It's like I don't know. I feel good. I'm me.
Okay, great.
I think for some piece of it, as far as being a single mom and an executive, some things have gotten easier recently because my daughters are now teenagers, and some things have gotten more difficult. Right. I don't have, it brings to mind that when I first got divorced 14 years ago, I rented an apartment, a 3rd-story apartment, for safety reasons. I didn't want to be on the 1st floor, single mom. Mm-hmm. My daughters were both in diapers, and the apartment complex that I was in over there off of Los Alamos, it's only stairs. There's no elevator. So on the days that I would have them, I would literally have to hoof it up 3 flights of cement stairwell with 2 kids holding 2 kids, a diaper bag, and a purse.
Oh my God.
So pretty much,
I bet you had like high heels on, knowing you.
Probably in a business. Yeah. So pretty much anything from there now gets easier. So But you just do what you need to do, and I did it. And I had to make sure that I did all my grocery shopping and everything when I didn't have them, because obviously there was no way to also cart that up the stairs. I wasn't going to leave them either in the car or in the apartment alone. So there were some definite challenges that I had to overcome as a single mom early on. But I feel like maybe once I made it through those, everything just kind of got a little bit easier as the years went on. So we're in a good place. I've got my one daughter is driving. That helps us out quite a bit because she's able to help out with some of the errands and necessities, of living necessities, right? She can pick her sister up. Her sister just turned 15, so she'll be driving in a year. So that again is going to change life. That daughter is in volleyball, and so very often has to be in all parts of this county for different practices and games and that sort of thing. So once we're kind of past that point too, but then, as a mom, now I get to sit up at night worrying about, are they okay driving? So it never really ends. It just kind of changes, but yeah, we're good. I have a great co-parenting relationship with my ex-husband. He lives about 3 blocks away from me. So we are able to toss back and forth the responsibilities of being single parents. And that helps out quite a bit, obviously, having that support there. So yeah.
That's great. How do you stay focused on what's the most important thing? And I don't know how much you want to get into in terms of just living a daily life. It's like being a parent, having been a parent, and looking at the workload that's there. As they grow older, yeah, it gets easier, but it's still a challenge, right? Um, how do you stay focused on what's the most important thing is your priorities? Do your priorities change?
I think that, and I gave a talk about this at the Women's Leadership Conference for the Corona Chamber in August. And my talk, because that was sort of the topic that I was given as well for that conference. And really I really had to think about it, and what I said during the talk was, if you are a busy parent and an executive, you don't really have time to stop and think about why it is you do the things you do or how you're doing it. There's not that really kind of time. You just don't do that. So when I was asked to be a speaker for that conference, it did give me the opportunity to stop and think about that, because I had to be able to answer the question in an intelligent manner, right? So I really had to stop and think about it. And really what I talked about that day is it all comes down to your why. And I think for any parent, your why is pretty obvious, right? But then at the same time, my why with my work, you're supposed to ask yourself, what would you do even if they didn't pay you? And whatever that answer is the golden answer of what you're supposed to do every day. I get to do that every day. And early on, when I first understood, when I first was hired by the city of Murrieta, and really began to understand that when I come into work every day, I'm helping to build a city, and what that means for the future of my daughters, and helping to put things in place and encouraging the things that need to be in place, so that, if you look back 17 years ago now, when I got hired, 16 years ago when I got hired by the city of Murrieta, working to put things in place so that eventually when they did go off to college, that we would have a better chance of bringing them back and having them join a workforce here. And, we've made big strides in that, but my why became, let me do what I can to make changes in this valley so that I leave it a better place for my daughters. So when you have those, it all comes down to your why. And I think that if your work why aligns with your parenting why, then it's really easy to kind of combine the two and find the time to prioritize things therein. And what, some days it is a challenge because, for example, next week I need to take my daughter to a doctor's appointment. And, kind of your first reaction when that comes up on my calendar, And maybe because my ex-husband can't do it, and we, like I said, we try to share the responsibility in that, but he's a busy professional as well. And my knee-jerk reaction in some cases is, no, I have to work. I can't be driving I can't be driving up to Riverside for your doctor's appointment. And so I do have to sometimes go, wait a second. Of course, hello, you can miss work. You can let them know that you're going to be doing something that's equally important. So you do just kind of have to check in with yourself, I think, and make sure that you're making the best decision for every moment. I try to make it to all the volleyball games. I can't. And do I feel bad about that when I can't make it? Absolutely. But, it is sometimes a challenge to balance everything, but you just have to look at every decision in that moment and make the best decision for that moment with the right priorities in mind, I guess is the best way to put it.
Beautiful. How do you, let me ask it this way. How have your kids viewed this situation? And do you think maybe that they've, what's different about how their growing up experience has been with a single mom versus a two-parent situation?
So we divorced when they were quite young. One was about 9 months old and the other one was about 2 years old, I guess. They're 18 months apart. So whatever that math is. They were quite little. They were both in diapers. So they don't really know anything different. And that was part of my decision-making process, that I could sort of sense that where we were headed wasn't going to get any better. So let's just end it now before the girls. I didn't want them growing up in one lifestyle and then having that ripped out from under them. So they really don't know anything different than what they have. And I guess for better or for worse, the majority of their friends have similar circumstances, although in most cases, the kids might have been 8, 9, 10, 11 years old. So there is some difference there. And the girls have kind of seen some of their friends go through that. So I don't know. I think at the end of the day, they would have preferred that their dad and I have stayed together and they could have had some sort of dream family. I mean, don't we all want that dream family, right? But it's not always reality. And I don't know too many people that look back on their childhood and go, wow, that was a dream. There's hurdles and hiccups everywhere, right? So this was my girls' hurdles and hiccups, but we've always tried to make it as smooth as we could for them. They've had phones. I know people aren't going to agree with that, but they've had phones for a long time. We kind of had to do that because we had to be able to juggle accordingly. And because we're both busy professionals, we had to do that. It gave us a level of comfort too, to be able to GPS them and know where they were at. But for a long time, their phone was only active on Wi-Fi, so they couldn't just use it. And we were their only contacts, and grandma and Aunt Carla and stuff like that. So they were limited in who they could talk to, but we've always made it very comfortable for them. For example, if they were at my house at a young age and they were missing dad, of course, they could call him and even FaceTime him. And even if he wasn't doing anything, he was always welcome to come over and visit with them and vice versa. So we did what we could to make it as comfortable as possible for them, so they never felt like they were missing out on the other parent, even when they were with the other parent. And we learned early on too, because our very first go at it, we were doing week by week. So I would have them for a week and then he would have them for a week. And really, there were two things that we discovered with that. One, it is very difficult to be a single parent for a week straight. You need a break. And the kids needed a break, right? It's also just like any other kind of, oh, there's the cat. I told you she'd probably join in.
Oh, cool.
Just like, there's the cat. Hi, Desi.
Hello.
Just like any other kind of maybe roommate situation, if you're all staring at each other for a week straight, everyone kind of needs a break. And on the flip side, the parent that was without them was having serious withdrawals, not being with them for a week. So we learned that did not go on for very long, probably not even a year. I would say a few months before we said, you know what, we're going to change this up. And I want to say that our marriage, or dissolution decree even said week by week, but we decided that we could come to a more amicable, and we didn't go through lawyers. We used a mediator. It was very as smooth as a divorce could be with kids and houses and stuff like that. So
That's good. That doesn't always happen.
And then that kind of lays the foundation, right? But then if you can do something a little bit more amicable, aside from that, the courts are always happy that you can do that. So we kind of figured out our own secret sauce. So basically we go 2 days on, 3 days off, 3 days on, 2 days off. So, and like I said, we've always made it very easy and very accommodating for them if they are missing the other parent. You know, maybe and his name is Greg, my ex-husband. Greg might call me and say, hey, the girls are missing you. Can I come drop them off? Are you busy? You know, and vice versa. So we were always very cognizant of that, because at the end of the day, that again, your why, our why is to grow great adults. And so anything that we need to do to grow great adults, we were going to do, even if that meant, okay, today's my day, but they want to be with dad. So I'm going to go drop them off with dad. If that's okay with him, that's okay, because that still speaks to the why that we were going after from the beginning. So we always made it very accommodating. It is tricky going back and forth, and that's ultimately why we live about 3 blocks away from each other, to try to accommodate that trickiness. Ultimately, someone's forgotten a pair of jeans at someone's house, and I always joke, because we go shopping for makeup and stuff like that. We're girls, and then all that makeup ends up at dad's house, and I'm like, and then they're over here, borrowing my makeup, and I'm like, excuse me, didn't I just spend $100 at Target yesterday? What's happening? Yeah. So there's always challenges with having the dual households, but
yeah. Well, I imagine. I'm thinking of Hope.
Hey,
Hope says, "Hey, Hope."
Hi, Hope.
All right. Imagine, kids are really good at negotiating and getting the parents, to do what they want them to do. And if I've seen situations where the kids actually end up separating the parents because they're so good at it. And in your situation, how did they step up? Seems like you've had this mix, and to me, it's like magic almost, the way it sounds, where everybody's working together.
So first and foremost, if you're going to be a dual household, you're going to have a single dad and a single mom. Communication is the key, because kids will be kids. And I cannot say that they did not try their darndest at times to, if dad said no, go to mom and try that angle. But at the end of the day, we made sure that our lines of communication were open. And I would ask them, at his house, he would ask them. At my house, I would ask them, did you already talk to your dad about this? Yes or no? And then let's say they said, yes, I did. And he's okay with it. On the text you get, hey, dad, hey, Greg, they're saying that you said it was okay. No, I did not say that. In fact, similarly, when we would have a punishment at one house or the other, we would immediately share. I would text him and say, especially when they were younger and they were needing that, whether it was a timeout or something was getting restricted from them or whatever, we would immediately get on the text to each other. It was usually a text. That's the great thing about text. The kids don't know when you're talking, and they don't know what you're talking about. So, if I was on the phone with him, and if it was a bad enough offense that happened, there might have been a phone call on speaker with dad and vice versa, right? But for the most part, I would text him and say, this just happened. Here's how I handled it. She's on restriction for a week from whatever. And then he would carry out that same punishment at his house when it was his turn, if it was within that same punishment timeframe, and vice versa with me. We would honor each other's, and very often too. And I mean, we didn't start out this way. It's grown into this. It's been 14 years, but very often too, we call each other and we say, okay, this happened. Here's how I think we should handle it. What do you think? And are you okay with my direction? And, for his piece of it, he's an executive. He works at NBS Gov in Temecula. A lot of people might know Greg Davidson. A lot of people know us. So I think we both have handled it like we would a business transaction, right? If you have a issue with someone at work, you would discuss with the other supervisors and get it handled. So I think kind of keeping it more in a business format that way and doing our best to keep the emotions and personality out of it as best we can. It never is 100%, but I think that's helped too. We handle it more like a business. You know, how would we handle this at work if we were having an issue with a staff person or an employee at work? And so that's kind of how calling each other and saying, this happened, here's how I plan to deal with it, what do you think? And then carrying that punishment through at both households. So I think they learned early on, they're not going to get away with anything. There was an open line of communication between mom and dad, you know? So I think they gave up on that. We haven't had, I should knock on wood, we haven't had an instance of that in quite a while because they already know that we're going to check it. So there's no point in
right. You
trying.
You created a boundary there. They go, oh, yeah. No.
Yeah, they just know it's not even worth the effort.
Listening to you, how has forgiveness figured in to the equation of you developing this situation that you've got? It seems, I don't know, from other stories that I've been hearing about single parenting, your situation, the way you've evolved it is textbook perfect, almost. I mean, the way you're describing it. Almost. But I gotta imagine, well, yeah, it's never perfect, but I gotta imagine that a lot of people deal with, emotional issues, and forgiveness might be a good strategy, but how did that play in for you guys?
So that's a good question. I would say in a lot of ways, a lot of the reasons that the divorce occurred 14 plus years ago probably never really did get worked out. We went to a couple of co-parenting classes after the fact. But as far as forgiveness, I mean, look, he on a daily basis might irritate me, and I'm quite certain that I do the same to him. Yeah. But it doesn't matter. Hopefully that would have been cool to have Greg on this podcast as well. I don't know if he would have been, because he doesn't like talking about this stuff. He's
not easy.
To kind of leave it alone.
I'm kind of stumbling over my questions because I don't want to step on too many toes.
No, and that's a fair question. I don't know, and I'm hoping that some of the people that are watching this now or will watch it in the future that may be looking for that golden thing that you can do. So we never went to any therapy. We never really had some conversations that maybe we needed to, if there's going to be an absolute forgiveness that might have occurred. But I think that both of our personalities are more anyways of, okay, this happened. How can we move forward from this and move forward? I think that's how he operates his life too. He's not really one to live in the drama and regurgitate the drama every day. So I think that's kind of how we attacked it was, okay, that chapter is closed. Now we need to move in this direction. And how are we going to do that the best way that we can? So we never did go back and kind of rehash anything. And occasionally things still come up. I mean, he's still my ex-husband. I'm still his ex-wife. I know we irritate each other. And sometimes when I really do get upset with him, I will send him a harsh text and say, that really made me mad. And for his piece of it, he's he's a financial analyst by trade. So he's an analyst. So he analyzes. He will wait before responding, and I'll get a text maybe 2 hours later. And it's usually something like, I'm sorry that it came across that way. I didn't mean for it to. So I think that we're just both solutions-based people, and we just try not to live in that drama. So to some extent, maybe there was just no reason to go back and rehash all of that. Mm-hmm. So, but I don't know, but it's definitely not perfect by any means, but it's a working relationship, and it's, to some extent a business relationship now. Right. Mm-hmm.
In your job, what would you describe as if you look at it in that context, what would you describe as your job, the role or the purpose of this business?
Growing two humans into adults.
Okay. So I
into
didn't.
into active, community-minded, productive adults is our business as parents. I believe
Mhm.
we're trying to create good humans for the future, and so if you keep that if you keep that in focus as your why, then you will come at it as a solutions based. How can we attack this problem and move it forward instead of just living in it, right? So um, I had another train of thought too, and now I just forgot it. Yeah, it's definitely. Well, this is what I was going to say. He's had a girlfriend now for about 10 years,
Okay.
Norma, and we love Norma. I love Norma. She's a fantastic person, and there are oftentimes, in fact, just last week we celebrated my daughter's 15th birthday, and we were all at the Cheesecake Factory together. And for Norma's part of it, Norma very openly tries to stay out of our problems. She tries to, she'll say, you need to ask your mom about that. Or she'll ask early on when she got involved. She is a fantastic hair person. So her kids were in softball and stuff like that. So she can do all these fun, cool braids with the hair. So early on, the girls would ask her to come do their hair for like a school picture. And she would ask me if that's okay. So everyone kind of needs to, if everyone's being respectful and everyone's rowing the boat in the same direction, it really does just work. I mean, there's no magic sauce to it. It's just we're all trying to get to the same destination and trying to be respectful of each other's time. And similarly, if they're spending time with Norma, I don't try to barge in and take that time away from her. And she takes my daughters shopping. She buys them fantastic birthday gifts. And here's the thing. Why would I not want someone else to love my daughters? That is not a bad thing, right? If they end up getting 3 parents that love them more than anything, that's better than 2. That's better than 1. So again, I think just understanding the end goal and everyone being respectful of each other in that process is just, that's it. That's the sauce.
Oh, that's great. What would you say that um, your kids have? How have they evolved in terms of their likes and desires in terms of just the mundane stuff like food and vacations and doing stuff together?
As far as like, do they like family vacations or?
Yeah, I mean, how do you handle that? How do you handle like food and keeping everybody happy with the situation that
We frozen? Hello? I think I'm frozen. Hello? Hello? Now I see 2 Jims. There's 2 Jims and 1 Kimberly.
my computer just completely shut off. It was like,
Oh, I was like, hello?
yeah, thanks for hanging in.
Sure.
Wow, that was weird. I I guess we're back. It looks like everything's
Okay.
working again. That was really weird. Um,
So as far as I guess I'm not quite clear on how do we handle food or.
yeah, well, I'm just curious. Like the kids obviously are cooperating well too. It's like, but I know in our household there's different people as the kids grew they like different foods and they like different situations where they could have freedom to do what they wanted to do as they grew. That kind of got bigger. Um, how do you guys handle those things together?
Um, I'm still not sure if I understand the question, but I'll start answering it. We'll see if we get there. I think that like as far as our dietary stuff and the type of food, we kind of buy the same stuff. There was never really an issue there. He tends to, I will say, he works from home, and which is really nice for him. And he buys those, what are they called? Like the chef, whatever, that they send it to your door. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah, okay.
Made meals or whatever, and then they're really easy. And the girls really like that because home chef, that's what I'm trying to think of.
Okay.
There have been so many different names over the time. So he orders those home chef things, and they make those at his house. And they really like that because then the girls can help him make dinner. I have a hard time ordering those things because our life at my house is a little bit, for some reason, volleyball practice ends up to be on my nights. I have council meetings. I feel like I just have a little bit more during the month that makes my schedule a little bit different than his, and I don't work from home, right? So, so here, my youngest daughter, the 15-year-old, she really likes to cook. So I don't know if I'm answering the question correctly.
Yeah,
but I guess we kind of have the same.
The mix. I mean, you're busy. You're a busy, you've got a daytime job, and then I know what you do. You're out and about, you're giving speeches, and you're out at public events and doing different things. And I know from looking, we're friends on Facebook, so I see sometimes your posts, and you're always doing stuff with people, and always I see consistently you've got your family in there too, your kids and your cats and dogs, and and just all the things that you're doing. It's a wonderful to watch because it's inspiring. You're just always on the move and doing something proactive and positive and having a good life. And so it's inspirational, I think, to have someone like you in the community that's doing things. It's like you're not sitting around and you're not looking backwards and going, well, I regret this, or I don't like that, and I'm going to make the rest of my life and people in my life miserable because of the experiences I had yesterday.
Right.
You're moving ahead, and you're always looking at, okay, what can we do next? And I love that about you. So but I think a lot of people are stuck looking at yesterday. So I wanted to see if you could express how you get through those challenges that come up, and what does your mindset look like in terms of, how you stay in that, I'm going to fix this mode and continue to be happy, even though you're facing challenge after challenge after challenge.
I think part of it really is just my nature to start out with. So I think I'm just wired that way. Now, don't get me wrong. I have bad days. And sometimes I'll post it on Facebook and then I feel bad like an hour later and I take it down because I'm like, who am I to complain anyways? I mean, it's, if you own your home in Murrieta, California, how bad is your life really gonna, I'm going to knock on wood too, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't just say things like that to be flippant, but really, I mean, part of it is I do, when I get into a rut or something that is affecting my life, I do try. And I think, Hope can tell you, and any of my other close friends that are on this call, they'll tell you, it's not always perfect. I'm human. I have bad days. I have days, Fridays are typically my day off. And sometimes I refer to those as my mental health days, where I literally stay in my pajamas and I don't answer the phone or do anything sometimes, because sometimes you just have to hide from the world and kind of regroup. Right. So I do that sometimes too, because I am human. But I just think that, again, I don't have a job that I consider to be a job. I do something every day that is my passion to do. So I don't look at it as a job. It's part of my core to be doing what I'm doing every day, whether it has to do with my girls or with the community. So I'm not trying to make a decision between the two or make a decision to put myself in a happy mood to go do that. It truly inspires me to be able to do what I do every day. And I don't take lightly what I do every day, and when I see a business, um, a business might tell me 10 years later, I'm open because you helped me get open. That's amazing. That's an amazing opportunity to be able to help that business. And I would like to say too that my girls have always been sort of educated in what it is that I do every day, whether that is because of me talking about it to them or hearing me on the phone, especially during COVID when we were all shut down in the house. And I was talking to businesses every day, and trying to keep them alive. And there were times actually during COVID, my girls would find me and I was in the bathroom on the floor in a fetal position crying because I didn't know how to help those businesses, So they've seen that, they understand it. There's actually some videos somewhere on my Facebook feed where the girls were pretending, I videotaped them, they were pretending to be me, pretending to call businesses and help them. And it was like, okay, they're listening. They are always listening. Your kids are always listening, even if you think they're not. And I think that they are very proud of what I do every day. So that helps too, because they really don't give me any trouble or they're encouraging as well. So if I say I need to be at this event or whatever, they sort of get it and they're like, okay, I know you need to be there. It was really funny when they were in elementary school, because there was, especially from the city of Murrieta, I think we had some commercials on the public access channel, which is kind of funny. I don't know who watches the public access channel, but there are some videos. Okay. Well, maybe you've seen some of the videos that we made over the years. And so when the girls were in Murrieta Elementary School, their teacher or their other classmates would say, I saw your mommy on TV today, and so that made them proud, because that was, everyone thought that was cool because it was all for something positive. So I think it has been beneficial along the way that my girls understand what it is that I do. And oh my gosh, what an opportunity that is for our community, because now we've got, and I know a lot of the other city officials and elected officials, they all bring their kids along. Randon's kids, everyone's kids, and all of our kids all know each other too. But what an opportunity, because I know growing up, I didn't know anything about local government. I couldn't have told you who the mayor of my city was. And my girls did know that, and they do know that. So what an opportunity that is for our future here in the Valley, that our kids are as connected as they are for the people who work at City Hall and stuff like that, because I think we're growing a different generation of people that are going to have a different understanding of local government and a different understanding of what can be done at that level. So what an opportunity that is for them there, whether they choose to go in that direction or not. You can't turn off what you already know. So they've always been very encouraging of me, and I believe proud of what I do. So there hasn't been that, I haven't felt that like, okay, mom, you have to be at work, whatever, it's been, they've been kind of alongside it the whole time as well. So I think that makes a difference, right? If I was going off every day to a different county, commuting 4 hours or whatever it is, like a lot of our residents have to do, and doing a job. I mean, look, growing up, I didn't know what my dad did every day. And I think as kids, we didn't have those conversations with our parents, right? So I didn't understand it. And so there was probably a different level of not appreciating it because I didn't understand it. So
That's a really good point.
Yeah, my kids understand what I do. They've seen what I do. They've seen people come up to me and say, oh my gosh, if it wasn't for your mom, my business would have never gotten open, or whatever the conversation might be. And I know that they internalize that and realize that what I'm doing every day is important. And it's not just for me, it's for the community. So I think that does help out quite a bit, because they've never really given me that pushback to be upset with my work. And I don't think they do with their dad either. But he's also in a different boat. He works for a private company, and he works from home. So, I mean, there are some differences there where he's afforded a few, maybe he wouldn't agree with that, but he's afforded some different time allotments that he can make he can prioritize some of their stuff, and he often does. He's often the one taking them to volleyball or to different things because we just have different time commitments on things. So,
Mhm.
but then it's not really it's not like I had to ask a friend to show up and take them, right? It's still their parent. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
I do think having your kids understand what you do every day and why you do it, and getting them to fully understand that could definitely help, because they might not understand, why are you choosing to be over here doing this instead of what you could be doing with me. So I feel like maybe if they could understand that angle of it, it could help a single parent or a parent in general to have their kids be more a part of the process in that respect.
Hmm. Yeah. So great wisdom there. Um, what would you say to a mom or a dad who's just gotten into a situation where they're a single parent, to help them, maybe the top three things that would help them get started on the in the right direction to build what you and Greg have built?
Well, first of all, and it's funny because Hope and I were kind of just talking about this a little bit ago, that it's really, both parties have to be in agreement. And I see that a lot with divorced parents. Maybe one side is willing to focus on the kids and really move in the forward direction, but the other parent, for whatever lots of details therein that I'm not privy to, but you really both have to be willing to go in the same direction for it to fully work.
Hmm.
Because otherwise, if you're the parent that wants to move forward, but the other one just really isn't going that way, it's going to be difficult. There's just no way around it. So I'm very fortunate in that respect that he was also willing to make this about the kids and be in the business of growing good humans, right? So that's already got to be in there. If that's not in there, then probably nothing else that I say is really going to hold much water, because it'll just be a struggle. And I hear that from people all the time. I have other girlfriends that are like, yeah, but you have a unique scenario because Greg was willing to work with you. And I'm like, well, that probably is true, but I don't know because I've never been in another scenario, but I can understand that and appreciate that. If the other, and honestly, that's why we ended up getting divorced. Because then the next question is, well, if you guys work so well divorced, why couldn't you just work together and married? Um, so if you can't work together, if you're not both willing to go in the same direction already, it's going to be difficult. But then I would say if you're able to achieve that hurdle, and like I said, that was not necessarily from day one. We did have to work at it. That first year right out of being divorced was not an easy one, and things did not go smoothly. But the next thing is to really make it about the kids and make it about growing good humans and focus on that, and think about what the drama or strife is doing to them. I know that there are some divorce stories out there where they kind of pit the kids against the next parent, or one parent wants to be the Disneyland parent because they want to be the better parent. And I always think there's probably a little bit of that. Of course, you want to be the better parent. Who doesn't, right? So I know that even Greg and I probably have had a little bit of that over the years, but at times. But if you really make it about the kids and about growing good humans, then that would probably be my number two. Number one, try to make sure you're rowing in the same direction. Number two, make it about the kids and growing good humans. You can't grow good humans if you're constantly showing them that, fighting with the other person, or being vindictive, or being, having revenge or whatever. That's not growing a good human. That's setting them up for not a good life. And then I guess number three would be, I had a number three. I guess number three would be, make your house as peaceful and full of love as you possibly can. Keep the drama out. Try to create a peaceful environment for them, and a loving home. I mean, I don't know that any of those things are earth shattering recipes, but I guess, that's what I've always tried to do, keep any kind of drama out of the home. Like I said earlier, if Greg and I did have a disagreement, we handled that typically over text or via a phone call when the kids weren't around. So they've really never seen their dad and I fight. I don't make flippant comments about like, oh yeah, your dad or whatever. And I trust that he doesn't do the same thing there. There's no point. If you're not adding value, then just keep it to yourself, call your friends, call Hope, call Hope and vent to her, but not to your kids. They don't need to know that stuff. And depending on their age, they just don't need to be part of any of that. So I've tried very hard. I've always spoken. I don't know what he does at his house, but I imagine it's similar. I've always spoken very highly of him in front of them. I've always spoken very highly of Norma, his girlfriend, in front of them. I don't, belittle the things he's doing. I don't do any of that. So I never wanted to create that environment where they felt like they had to choose a side or, but again, it's not perfect and it doesn't always go. It sounds so simple when I'm talking about it on this podcast. It's not that simple. And it's definitely a choice every single day. Because trust me, there are some days where it doesn't maybe go exactly like that, right? Because we're all human and we all have other stressors and there's lots going on in life. But if you aim for that every day, I think that's probably the best advice that I can give.
Mm-hmm. What would you say if somebody was dealing with those kind of issues, like the first one, that you couldn't get along with your ex-spouse? What could you do to pull that together? So I imagine that's one that cuts a lot of people away from achieving what you've been able to achieve with Greg. Is just like, how do we work together? It's like you said, we got divorced. If we could work together, we wouldn't be divorced.
It's tough. And like, I even have one friend that her ex-husband took early retirement from the Marines, didn't tell her about it, took the money and went to a different country. And I mean, it's just some things that you can't work with. I don't know how you work with that, but I know that in her case, every day she tries to make a beautiful life for her children and tries to create that peace and harmony in her home. And she tries to manage it as best she can. It's terrible. And there are situations, and I also don't want this to come across have people thinking it's always the man. I know that it's not always the man. It goes both ways. But that's just one example that I have of, I don't have any advice for her. I don't know how you fix that. Sometimes you just can't fix it because the other person just is not going to row in the same direction no matter what you're doing. Mm-hmm. But once you figure out, okay, here's where we're at, how do we move forward from here? That's how you handle it. As with any situation in life, here's where we're at, here are the facts, how do we move forward from this and make it a better situation? And she does work to do that, which is part of why she's one of my friends. If she wasn't working in that manner, she probably wouldn't be one of my friends, because I'm not just going to live in drama, where someone's being vengeful or whatever. And I respect her for that. And I appreciate what she's going through. And I appreciate that every day she tries to make it better for her kids, even though someone else is trying to actively work against that. And I don't understand that mindset that the other one has, but I appreciate her mindset. So even if you have the other spouse that just refuses to work in the same direction, then the only thing that you can do is, okay, how are we going to admit that this is the situation at hand and move forward from this as best we can and create that peace and love in that I can control, right? And that just reminded me, if you've ever listened to Kelly Bennett give a presentation, she does this where there's a circle and there's things within that circle you can control. And then there's a lot of things outside of the circle that you can't control. And you cannot spend your time worrying about the things outside the circle that you can't control. So if you have a divorced spouse that you can't control, obviously their actions, then you just have to figure out how you can work within the circle that you can control. And I know for anyone going through that right now, that's probably not what you wanted to hear, because there's no magic wand to make it work. But you just got to create your own peace and figure out, maybe lower your expectations of what that person's going to do. If you know 9 times out of 10 this is how they're going to answer you, stop asking that question then. Adjust and lower your expectations about how you think it's going to go. Maybe lower your expectations about what you think they're going to pay, and pay for, or give you as far as child support, because I know that's always a big issue. And then figure out how you can work and control what's in your circle from there.
Yeah.
It's tough. If you've got someone that just refuses to work in the same direction, that you do have some limited opportunities of how you can work with that. It's not going to be easy.
Yeah. Well, it's never easy, but it's just, I think I love that your answer about that. It's about the kids. It's about the kids. So making that decision together is probably the best thing to move forward with it. How would you characterize our local community today in terms of the, I don't know, the pulse of being a single parent, or particularly a single mom here in the Temecula Valley?
I guess it's hard. We have a fantastic community. We have a very caring community. Everyone pulls together. That's been my experience. Everyone has always been, in fact, early on, when I would need to bring my kids to like a chamber mixer or something like that, everyone was always very accommodating. I don't know. I wouldn't live here if it wasn't like that. I think our valley is very family oriented. Our valley is very small, even as big as it is. I don't know. A lot of people, when we go out, they'll walk up to us and they'll say, "Oh my gosh, I've known you on Facebook since you were tiny." And my girls roll their eyes, but secretly I think they love that, because they're like, "Oh my gosh, we're like mini celebrities around here. We didn't even know it." Sometimes they will tell me, "Do not post that, Mom. I'm going to hurt you if you post that," because they do know that people are looking at it. But I don't know. I love our community. I think we have a very caring community. I think we have a very connected community, this whole valley. When I meet with my marketing, when I meet with someone that's recently moved here, I always tell them there's good news and there's bad news. The good news is this community is very small. And if you're a good person and you want to get connected with our elected officials, with everything that's going on, very easy to do. The bad news is our community is very small. And if you are not a good person and you're not here to do good things, you will be run out of town pretty quick. And I've seen that happen over the years. So I think we have a very connected community here. I think that there are a lot of single parents in this community. As far as like maybe resources, I'm not really sure if, how much resources, like true resources, I'm sure they're out there. They're probably more county led than anything else if someone was looking for a resource. So that sort of varies. But as far as just the community being supportive of single parents, I feel like it has been. I think we have an incredible community here. In fact, sometimes I get in some of the meetings that I'm in, the nonprofits that help out the homeless community will tell us your community is too caring and giving. And so, because sometimes homeless, the unsheltered, refuse help with services because they're already getting that help from the community, because we do have a very caring community. People want to give a lot. And it makes me proud to live here. That's a great problem to have. We are too caring of a community, right? So what an incredible place to live in. So.
That's beautiful. And I agree. I've had opportunities of late to the last few years, I've stepped into the community and through the chambers and different groups that are here. And everybody's always welcoming and very accommodating and very proactive. I think there's just so many great people here. I've been here for over 30 years. So it's like, yeah, I'd move somewhere too if I didn't like it.
Yeah.
I've been all over the world, and this is like the best place, period.
Yep. We've had instances over the years where with the Marietta Wildemar Chamber that one of the chamber members was going through cancer and needed a ride to the doctor's appointments, and everyone signed up for the, it goes further than just the business day to day. It's, I think a lot of people that are here, they love that small town feel that we have, even though we're 5 cities wide.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter if you're in Menifee all the way down to Temecula and everything in between. There's a great sense of community here, and everyone I've witnessed over the years, everyone does chip in and help, and it is a great. Unless there has been on occasion that person that shows up that's here for other reasons, and I've seen them get run out of town. It's sometimes it takes us a little bit because we're a very trusting community. We had a case, Hope knows this, and a lot of my friends know this. We had a case where someone came to this community, was lying about having cancer. And, we were very giving and tried to come alongside her and help her and help her and help her. And turned out that she was not being honest, and Marietta PD ended up getting involved. And I had someone ask me, how would you have done things differently, knowing what you know now? And I said, I wouldn't have done anything differently, because you know what? Someone told us they were in need. We believed them. We jumped in, we helped. And I hope we do that every single time. If they're here for the wrong reasons, then shame on them. But I hope this community always jumps in and just helps. She ended up getting arrested, and Marietta PD is awesome at what they do. So,
I love the police. I love the police here. They're always, I mean, it's not like we're lucky. I mean, it's intentional.
It's deliberate. Yeah.
And there's boundaries and guidelines. It's like with Bob Donnell, our mutual friend, Bob Donnell, is always talking about setting boundaries and having your own guidelines. And that holds for your individual person as well as a community, right? And all that takes communication and having that continual conversation going on all the time about, it's like what you and your kids and your ex-husband do constantly. You're always talking about what's going on. It's open communication, and having that ability is so important. That brings to mind of late with COVID, we had a situation. How did COVID affect your situation being a single parent?
So it was actually really interesting during 2020 because I had a different 2020 than some people. Worse than some and better than others. But right at the beginning of 2020, my now 16-year-old, who was like 13 at the time, 12, whatever that math is, very beginning of 2020, she became very, very ill in January. So it's weird because that year we had to take her to so many doctor's appointments that if we had had a normal year, well, let me just tell you the story first. So in January of 2020, she became very ill, and that was before technically COVID was here, right?
Right.
I'm sure she did not have, well,
it showed up in March that year, really. It was March, a couple months later.
That it was officially here. And so this was January 13th of 2020. I had to take her, I had to rush her to Inland Valley Hospital at like 3 a.m. because her fever was 105 point something. And she also had a rash all over her body that was extremely itchy. The rash in her mind was worse than the fever because it was itchy,
Sure.
And so I took her to Inland Valley Hospital in January, and they determined that she had like influenza B, whatever it was. And they said, take her home, give her some green tea, whatever the case was. And okay, so she actually got better quite fast. And I was very proud of my mom's skills that I was able to cure the flu with green tea in a very short amount of time. Well, like 3 days later, she relapsed big time. And now her fever was like 106, and we couldn't get it to come down. And we didn't know what was going on. And so she had kind of from January. So before they went back to school after Christmas vacation, she had kind of continual doctor's notes So she was out of school that year, all of January, all of February. And we were, this in our world, Greg and I were like, this can't be happening. Like, you have to go to school. You can't just not be at school. But at the same time, she was also very sick. So we were we were doing everything we could. The battle cry was to get her healthy so that she could be back to school April 1st. Well, guess what happened April 1st? School district shut down and everyone went home. So, in a weird way, it was a blessing, because it was like the whole world kind of fell apart. So it wasn't just our world falling apart, because what we didn't want, we're afraid Emma was going to be home the entire year and not be in school. And that would have been a weird thing in normal times, right? As it turned out to be a very normal thing for that year. So it was all just very odd how that played out for us in our world. And so at one point they had her on by, I think it was like May. By May, they had her on, they still know what it was. They had her on some very, very strong steroids, and the steroids, lower your immune system and all that stuff. And this was at the height of, we didn't know what was going on with COVID. So Greg and I made the determination that the girls would stay at my house. We were going to lock ourselves in. He didn't even come over. He would FaceTime them. There was an occasion where they sat at the door and he stayed far away, because we didn't know what was wrong with her. We didn't know what would harm her. And we certainly did not want her with her lowered immune system to get COVID, because we were still in that. We didn't know what was going on. It seemed like the whole world was just kind of falling apart at that moment. And I was ordering Instacart, and I was disinfecting every single thing before it came in the house. But as a parent, I look back on that and go, as a parent, I don't know how many times you might say, I wish time would just slow down. I want to have more time with my kids. Guess what? I got that. So I think pretty much the entire month of May, we were locked down. No one was allowed to come over. We didn't leave. We would go on a bike ride. If we did leave, it was just in our own family pod. It was just the three of us. And in a weird way, I'll be forever grateful for that month, because not a lot of people as parents really get that extra time with the kids. We put on fashion shows. We invented a game with one of our cats where it was a rubber band, and it was like a Cooper hockey is what we called it. We invented a game. We just did. And during that time too, I would have FaceTime. My wine group, we would meet over FaceTime. And so, we still did things to try to keep ourselves sane, of course, for that Easter. So I guess that was as early as April. So maybe we locked down in April. For Easter dinner, because we were locked down, I made Thanksgiving dinner. So we had Thanksgiving in April.
Very cool.
A lot of fashion shows, a lot of just trying to keep ourselves with a lot of bike rides. So anyways, towards the end of 2020, we finally discovered she has juvenile onset RA is what it ends up, rheumatoid arthritis is what it ends up to be. And luckily we were able to get her on a shot that pretty much makes her life back to normal again. We're still trying to determine whether or not she's going to need that shot forever or how that's going to work out. But anyways, that's where we are. But so for all of 2020, we were going to constant, appointments with specialists. And I don't know how we would have accommodated that had the rest of the world not been shut down and all of us working from home and just being in a different world. It would have been very difficult to navigate that. So it was very odd how that all kind of came to fruition. So, but at the same time, I was still dealing with at City Hall, like I said earlier, trying to keep my businesses open, fielding phone calls from my businesses, grown adults crying on the phone to me because they were losing everything. These small business owners, there's not an additional pot of money somewhere that they pull from. That is the pot of money. Right. And if their doors are closed and their doors are locked, there's no other pot of money that they're pulling from. So I was also fielding phone calls from those businesses, people crying and asking me what they can do. And I didn't have any answers. No one had any answers, So at the same time, it was also a lot to deal with given everything else that was going on in the world. But I guess for my benefit, I was able to deal with it from my home. So when I was reduced to a fetal position on my bathroom floor, no one else saw that except for my girl. There were some tough days. There were some tough days where I was like, God, I don't know how to, I can't fix this for anybody. And they were calling me, asking me how I can fix it for them. I couldn't fix it for them. You know, it's tough. It was tough, but we made it. We lost very few businesses in this valley. We lost very few businesses due to the COVID pandemic. There were a few that we lost, but to be honest, we were probably going to lose them anyways. And the COVID pandemic just put that nail in the coffin, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I hope that anyone watching this too understands that the people in charge of this stuff, whether you're talking to me, you know, talking about me, you're talking about Bridget, you're talking about Scott and Murietta, whatever, we don't take this lightly. Like it is something that we may be reduced to the fetal position crying in our bathrooms because we do want to see everyone succeed. But sometimes we just don't have the answers. We don't have, you know, certainly with the COVID pandemic, we were up against something that was not manageable or fixable from our level at all. So it was tough. It was a tough couple of years there. But we did what we could to keep the people open and operating and making money for their families. But during that whole time we didn't know, they were testing her for lupus. They were testing her for Lyme's disease. You know, they were testing her for lymphoma. I mean, they were testing her for some pretty scary stuff. So that was going on in the background as well, that it was like, we didn't have any answers. It's almost scarier when a loved one is going through something like that. It's almost scarier when you don't have answers, you know, because it's just like, what next? And the doctors were at a loss of what they could even test her for. So that was a tough year or two, but you know, luckily, knock on wood, it's leveled out. She's found the medication that at least helps her. And it is our prayer that we can somehow get her off of that, and she doesn't need to take that for the rest of her life. But if she needs to, she will, and that's where we'll be, you know. So
it's interesting. It's kind of a similar story.
You have a similar story?
Well, sort of, yeah. Mine hit a month after, in February, like mid-February. I had this similar thing happen to me, and I'm still dealing with it. But I'm not on any meds. But I've got it stabilized.
Good. I suspect that once she's older, you know, the rheumatologists that we've talked to, they say sometimes they just grow out of it. So we're hopeful for that. Yeah. I do think too, as she gets older, teenagers want Cheetos, they want soda, I do think that when she starts to get older and starts taking more control of her nutrition and her own health, there's a chance that she can make some decisions that might get her off of the medication that she's on or curtail it a little bit. And you know what? We make incredible advancements in health all the time. Mm-hmm. So I'm also hopeful that something will come of that too. But at least in the meantime, we do have a way to manage it. She does lead a very normal teenage life with all that entails. You know, heartbreaks and friends, and she leads a very full, and thank goodness, because really in 2020, we didn't know. She couldn't walk by the end of 2020.
Wow.
She was like Tiny Tim. She couldn't walk at all. She was army crawling to
I know the RA can be like, oh, so painful. When I get some bouts, and it's just like, oh my God, it's amazing how painful it is. So,
yeah, she went from being in gymnastics at the end of 19 and being in like advanced gymnastics to not able to walk by mid 2020. And try as we did, every doctor, every specialist, everything that we took her to, they didn't know, you know, and they would test her for this. Nope. Test her for this. I mean, on one hand, we were thankful, obviously, that it wasn't something like lymphoma or whatever. But then at the same time, you're like, but you know, what is it? And it was rough. So 2020 was an interesting time on many levels for me, but I'm glad we got through it, and we got through it with a lot of grace. A lot of our businesses that made it through that today are really thriving. And so it all, you know, knock on wood again, I knock on wood a lot. Um, I think we made it through on every level with about as much grace and blessings as we possibly could have. So all's well that ends well, right?
Yeah, and every time you run into a block, what looks like a roadblock, you can somehow turn it around. You know, it's like you just got to put one foot in front of the other every day and just keep moving ahead.
Yep.
So that's what you guys have been successfully doing. So congratulations.
Thank you.
One last thing I wanted to ask you, if you still have some time?
Yeah.
We have, you had mentioned at the beginning of our conversation about, just briefly about the plans you've got for your kids in terms of college and maybe, advanced education or helping them with that. How's that going for you guys?
Well, and so anyone with teenagers can probably appreciate that it doesn't matter what my plans are or Greg's plans are. they have their own plans. My youngest daughter is very, very focused. She kind of figured out early on that there's an opportunity to get scholarships. And so she's been working on, she's been very involved in volleyball, and she on her own, she is harder on herself than we could ever be on her. So she is straight A's. She got the straight A 4.0 for all 3-year award at the middle school. And we don't have to police her at all, because she does a better job, but a worse job. I mean, sometimes we have to tell her, like, don't be so hard on yourself. It's okay. Mm-hmm. But she's a perfectionist. I don't know where she gets that from. She's a perfectionist on every level. Almost, from a mom standpoint, I'll be honest with you, almost to a fault the other way. We do have to tell her to not be so hard on herself, you can aim for perfection, but you need to be okay when you don't get there, because you're human and you're not perfect. You're never going to be. You can't be hard on yourself for not being perfect. That's going to be a rough life too, So she's very driven. For years, she's had a whiteboard in her bedroom. She puts notes to herself. She puts goals, and that's all stuff that she just did on her own. The 16-year-old, she's, I would say, more of maybe your typical 16-year-old. She gets extremely smart. In fact, she is the one, like I said, she was in advanced gymnastics. Whatever we put her in, she would excel. She's like got that golden touch. Put her in golf lessons. She had a perfect golf swing the very first moment they put a golf club in her hand. And the instructor was like, has she taken golf lessons before? And we were like, no. Anything she touches turns to gold. She has a beautiful singing voice. She is an artist. She draws incredible stuff. She can memorize. She hears a song one time and she memorizes all the lyrics. I think she would make a great in theater. I think she would be able to memorize a script. Her challenge is nothing really motivates her. I think she's so smart, she's not motivated. So we have that challenge with her, just trying to get her to be motivated with something. She prefers to chat with her friends, and she gets decent grades in school. They're A's and B's, but she could be A++ like her sister if she just gave it that little bit extra oomph. She just chooses not to, right? She's like, I'm getting A's and B's without trying. What's the point? She's incredibly smart. So we have that challenge with her of how we can motivate her more, how we can challenge her more. She did just get a job. Hopefully I'm allowed to say she did just get a job at the corporate room in Wildemar with Steve Bierce. She's going to be a server for his catering.
Very good. I love that.
We're looking very forward to that, because I have a feeling that kiddo is money motivated. She already has a, $1 million lifestyle. She gets her hair done more than I do, and so on and so forth, and zero budget to afford it. So I have a feeling that my hope is that once she starts making her own money and really understands what that freedom can afford her, that I hope she catches the bug to, I want to work more. I want to do, I get it now, She has a car. We did get her a car, but she is limited on how much gas money we get. It's like, you got to put in your piece of it too. she will most likely at this point, I think her goal is to go to MSJC and then transfer over as a junior, which I'm fully in support of. That was my path. I went to Moore Park Junior College for 3 years and then transferred over to CSUN as a junior, and I love that path. Had I not done that path, I would probably be in a different career right now, and I might not have loved it, because the people at the junior college were paying attention and pulled me aside and got me into a different career path. And I'm thankful that they did that. So I love the junior college, and then you transfer over. I think that's a great way to go, unless you get a full ride scholarship. If you get a full ride scholarship, of course you're going to do that. So I have a feeling that might be how it's going to play out. I think Emma's going to stick close to home for a bit, and she probably needs to. And she probably needs that buffer between high school and full-on college to kind of acclimate, to the requirements of college, much like I did. I needed that. I would not have been successful going to a 4-year college right out of high school. I just wouldn't have been. So I'm grateful for that. I think my younger one, hopefully, knock on wood, will get a full ride scholarship. She already has intentions of doing that out of state because she wants to fly on her own early. So I may lose her to who knows where, wherever they have great volleyball, I suppose. And that will be tough, but that's going to be her path. So we'll see how it all works out. Who knows? But I think that's how it's going. And meanwhile, my ex-husband, being the financial analyst that he is, he had set up college funds for them early on. And both of us, more him than I, but both of us have been putting money into that. So there's a decent chunk in there so far that they can use for college. If they don't need to use it for college, then maybe it's the down payment on their first home. I don't know. But so we're trying to prepare. We're trying to be ready for that. We'll see how it goes. My youngest one is doing everything that she can. Oh, that's the other thing. She told me the other day, did you know, she checked it out. Did you know that I can already work? This is before she turned 15. Did you know that I can already work at 14? And I said, I don't think so. I think you have to be 15 and a half to get a work permit. Nope. Apparently not, according to her. She'd done all this research because she wanted to go get a job at 14.
Wow.
Apparently all she needed was a note from the school has to sign off, which of course they would, because she's got like a 4.0 or 4.2 or whatever it is. So there'd be no reason for them to say no, right? And she's in like full-time volleyball and right. But I said, oh my gosh, that would sure be something if you got a job before your older sister. That would show her that she's resting on her laurels. But
Oh man.
anyway, she never did it. And now she's 15 and she's very active in volleyball. So, and she can't drive herself there. So it's like, how are you going to get to this job anyways? So we'll see how that all pans out. But that's just the type of person that she is. I can get a job at 14 if I want to. And I've been working since I was 14. But of course, when I was 14, that was a different world. I don't know that all of those laws and rules were in place, but because I learned early on, if I had my own money, then, there wasn't a whole lot of people that could tell me what I could and couldn't do with it. And I really appreciated that. So,
yeah.
So
several of the entrepreneurs that I have had the pleasure of interviewing on my other podcast, started when they were 9-10 years old with businesses, trading cards or, doing something that they would buy and sell stuff and they'd make money with it. And they had the neighborhood kids working for them, and they'd pay them something. So it's like, yeah, if it's there, it sounds like she's just pre-wired.
Yep. Well, one of the things I'm really trying to encourage my daughters to do is to, while they're going to college, is to get a vocational certificate of some sort, whether that's learning how to do nails, cut hair, whatever, because then when they do go off to college, they could provide that service to their friends there at a reduced cost and kind of start their own business and always have something to fall back on one way or the other, right? So if they go into the vocational type of work, they have the degree to fall back on and vice versa. Then the whole world opens up to you in a different way than if you just had one path, if you have multiple doors that are open to you. So if that's an idea for parents out there, I think that's a good, I wish I had done that when I was in college and had a fallback career that I could do in between the other stuff. Even if it's, I mean, it could be bartending. There's a lot of different skills out there where you can make a lot of money while you're also working towards getting your degree. And, you know, then you've got options. Then you have a lot of options and you can make money for yourself. And money is power. Money leads to freedom, you know, being able to
Right.
make more
Yeah.
choices.
But I think throughout the thread of this conversation has been that it's understanding the human side. It's understanding the ability to communicate and to work together and to have time together and enjoy the process and be happy. Just be happy in whatever it is you're doing, and things come up, you know, but you solve them together.
Well, and I know, you know, that's one of the things that we try to work on here in our region. We know that there's a lot of people commuting out every day to that point. They're commuting out every day from our valley.
That was me for a long time.
Yeah, that definitely cuts into the amount of time you can spend with your family. There's a definite quality of life issue there when you are on the freeway 2 hours going and 2 hours back. I mean, I know I commuted to Corona for 3 years, so I was part of that for a while. We had a nanny. Luckily, she was a fantastic nanny and a good friend of ours, and that all worked out, you know, wonderfully. But it's still, I wasn't there. I wasn't there helping them with homework because I was on the 15 freeway, you know. So it's something that we are working on. It's not a quick, it might not even be solved in the time that I have left at my city job. It's going to take a long process. It's just a long process, 20 years, 30 years. But every day we try to put more things in place so that we don't have as many people commuting out, so that people can spend more time with their families. And, but we do have a lot. I think I don't know after the COVID numbers now, I think it's somewhere between 30 and 35% of our population. It used to be closer to 40. COVID did help us a little bit with that because there are more people now, like my ex-husband, for example, working from home, whereas they were traveling out to an office before that. It's starting to balance itself out a little bit now. People are starting to return back to the office, just not quite the same way that they were before COVID. But there are also a lot of people on this earth that drive a lot of hours and a lot of miles every day to go to a job that they don't love and that they don't have a passion for. They do it because it's a paycheck. And I think that that's a real problem in our society, because if you're going somewhere more than you're with your family and you don't even love it, and maybe in some cases you hate it, then there's a definite quality of life issue. And what kind of shape are you in by the time you get home to even deal with your family, you know, and enjoy time with your family? Probably not much of a condition. So I've been very blessed. I do what I love and I get to do it right here. And I get to bring my girls alongside of me. I realize not everyone has that opportunity, but so I guess what I've always wanted for our next generation and what I've tried to tell my girls is don't think about the money that you can make. Think about what is it that you want to do every day, and not the profession that you want to do. You need to start with, do I want to talk to people every day? Do I not want to talk to people every day? Do I want to sit behind a desk every day? Do I not, you know, and really think about what that is that you envision seeing. I don't know that anyone asked us that during our generation. You know, there were like, you're going to be a nurse, you're going to be a doctor. I mean, there was like professions that you were going to do. No one ever asked us what we wanted to do. So I'm hoping that this next generation, they have a little bit better, and maybe if there's a way, you know, for even this current working generation to really think about, you know, am I in the job that I love, and how is this affecting my family? How is this affecting my health? Am I doing this because I have a passion for doing it, or am I driving 4 hours a day for something that I don't even enjoy doing, and it's not energizing my life or creating value for me other than a paycheck? We all need a paycheck. But I think that is a real problem in our society. And I think that pinpoints a lot of family issues. I think that's a lot of health issues. It's obviously traffic issues. But I have not met a lot of people, whether they work here or they don't work here, they commute out, that have they do this because this is their passion. There's a lot of people that do it because it's the paycheck. And I don't know how we start to turn that around, but it would be great if we did, because I think that would that would begin to solve some of the other issues that stem out from that. Then I can't imagine going somewhere, and I've had jobs over the year, I've been working since I was 14. Like I said, I've had lots of bad jobs, so I know what that's like to in fact, I had said when I was speaking at that women's conference in August, I had said that actually I had a job I hated so much I would go hide in the bathroom, just in there, like trying to not be there because I hated it so much,
Yeah.
And how is that? That's a horrible way to get through a day.
It
Time does
is.
not go by faster when you're hiding in the restroom. Let me tell you that right now. It goes even slower.
So
I mean, just horrible to spend your day doing that. And then you're probably not a happy camper by the time you get home at the end of the day after dealing with traffic and everything else. So I that is something that we are working on every day here in our valley, but it's not an easily solved issue or quick. So it's tough.
Yeah, I've dealt with the same things. And you see the results of that when you get to be 30, 35, and you've got, maybe a family started, a couple of small kids, and you're the breadwinner, and you all of a sudden have this financial load. You've got a car payment, a car or more cars, cell phones, a house or rent, food, insurance, saving along for your retirement and for the kids' education. All those things start adding up,
Wow.
and you get locked in. I'm making enough money now to solve this, to handle it every month, but no extra. And if something happens, you're like right on the edge, that knife edge of success and failure. If you get laid off or something happens to you,
Right.
it's a problem.
It's stressful.
So yeah, and what makes that worse is if you don't enjoy what you're doing, then it's even worse. It's like, so I absolutely agree with you. I think as a society should spend more time in talking about that when they're teenagers, like when they're your kids' age. My mom and dad actually did. I was lucky. But
see, we didn't have conversations like that. I mean, my parents always told me, you're going to college, you will have a career.
I got that too.
They said things like that, but I don't recall any conversation. I don't think we just didn't. It wasn't them. I just think as a society, we didn't talk about it like that back then.
Yeah.
And and maybe also because I'm a female, if you go back 40 plus years, the options were more limited than they are now. So absolutely. It wasn't like, what do you want to do? The world is your oyster. I mean, it was, but then it was like, the world is your oyster as long as you want to be a teacher or a nurse or, it was a little bit different back then is all. But I try to have those conversations with my daughters where I say, first think about how you want to spend your days. Because look, my job, I absolutely love my job. Some people would absolutely hate my job. Some people want to sit behind a computer all day long, and we need both in this world to make the world work. So if someone got stuck in my job that hated talking to people and hated being out in front of people and, was really uncomfortable doing that, this job would be torturous for somebody. And then vice versa, if you set me behind a desk with it, like what my ex-husband does, you set me behind a desk with an Excel spreadsheet, I would be asleep under my desk for most of the day. I wouldn't be able to do that, So we need everyone to make the world tick, but that's what you have to think. That's what I'm hoping, everyone poses to their kids. First, you got to understand how you want to spend your days. Is it talking to people, doing hair? You hate talking to people? What does that look like for you? And then you find a profession or a line of work that speaks to your persona that you can fit within that type of day that you're going to have. Then I think you've got some magic happening.
Yeah, I think the apprenticeship idea is powerful. That might be something interesting to kind of pull into the mix again, to have young people try things, just try something.
Yeah.
They used to have really sophisticated programs for that, where it was almost like being an indentured servant, though. So that was not a good thing, but you got an education.
We still do. And then interestingly enough, we just recently had at the city level, all of us went to a meeting at MSJC just recently, 3 weeks ago. a lot of the mayors were there, a lot of the economic development people were there, and that's exactly what we were talking about is fostering a better apprenticeship and internship program between different types of businesses, different types of industries, and all of our schools and MSJC and that sort of thing. So, you know, like I said, it is something that we do work on every day. I know that the general public probably, they wouldn't know because they're not in those meetings, and they may or may not see fruits of our labor coming out because it's just not that, it doesn't happen on a week by week basis. It happens really more on a decade by decade basis because it just takes a long time, you know. But when you do stop to look, and I have to do, so I've been here for 24 years in this valley, almost 24 years in this valley. You know, sometimes, so it's like this, you know, when you see your kids every day, you don't realize them changing, but then you have that relative, maybe grandma, that shows up, you know, whenever they do, and they're like, oh, you've grown so much, and you didn't realize it because you've been there close to it every day, right? And I think that's a piece of it here in this valley. We're all so close to it. We see it every day. We don't really see what's happening. But when you really stop to either look at pictures from about 25 years ago, maybe look at some of the things that we were dealing with 25 years ago and to what we have now, we have made strides. And sometimes I do have to remind myself of that, because sometimes I know, you know, in my line of work, our mayors, our other economic development people, we get frustrated sometimes because things aren't happening as fast as we want, but they are happening. Mm-hmm. So it is important to note that we've made some big changes in this valley to bring in more business and to bring in more of that, bring in more jobs and more of a workforce, more 4-year education, higher education. We've made some great strides in that over the years collectively as a region. So we can't forget that either. But it just takes a really long time. It just does not go fast. So.
Yeah, it's all good though. It's a great place to be, raise kids.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much. Boy, this goes so fast.
I know.
I always say that, but it's true.
Keep talking for hours, but I don't know that everyone's still listening. They're probably like, okay.
There's
okay, good. We've got a few hanger-oners.
Yeah, so that's cool. But we'll wrap it up. Thank you so much for sharing and taking time and sharing your personal stories. I mean, it's like, wow, that is so beautiful. I know that's helping. It's going to help a lot of people to see kind of that different side of Kimberly Davidson, and giving us a peek inside how you make things work. It's an honor and a privilege, and really special for me to have had this conversation with you. I appreciate it very much. Yeah,
I appreciate the opportunity to talk about it.
I think it's important. I want to ask more people to join me and have this additional conversations down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah. And we'll be up on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel, so I'll send you the link to that, and I'll just share it out wherever we can.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. And have an awesome rest of your day.
Thank you. I will. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye. I'm going to hit end stream.